Hi guys, this is Come Flying to the Sky. Welcome here. I would like to share with you another dream that I believe is a warning dream from the Lord. I received this dream on April 20th of 2020, so just within the last couple of weeks here. And I do want to put a little bit of a warning out there though, that if you're someone who is quite sensitive to details that are a little bit more distressing or disturbing, then maybe don't watch this video, or at least don't watch the end of the dream that I'm going to be sharing. So the first part of the dream starts out quite happy and bright and chipper, but the end does turn to be quite serious and heavy and a little bit disturbing. So thought I'd put that out there. This dream began me being at my former high school where I graduated from. So it felt like it was grade 12 and it was like the last day of school, right? So it was like super exciting. Now, in the dream, my brother was with me as well, and in the dream, he was about 12 to 14 years old. So we just finished school and we were headed out of the school front doors, and we were walking towards the school bus that was in the parking lot. Now, the school bus had its doors open, and there was children on the bus, there was children outside of the bus, and we were all kind of just like mingling and hanging out, waiting for the actual bus driver to come, get on the bus, and drive us home. My brother and I, we were just hanging around outside of the school bus waiting for departure when I happened to look up into the sky. And when I looked into the sky, I saw the most interesting and unusual thing that I could have never ever imagined. I saw like the hugest, the most gigantic oil can that I have ever seen in my life. It took up so much of the sky. And yet, what was even more unusual about this is it was the most beautiful oil can I have ever seen. It looked like it was golden or made of bronze, and it was a bit kind of like translucent, so it almost was like a rainbow where you could kind of see through it, but not really because it was really there. And it was so beautiful. I would describe it as vibrant and radiant. It was absolutely stunning, this giant oil can that I saw. So, as I was admiring this beautiful sight in the sky, I quickly noticed that clouds, very dark clouds, moved in very quickly and covered over that oil can that I had been staring at. So, as my attention shifted from what I had been looking at to these very dark clouds, I realized that this is really serious and we need to take shelter right now. There was a giant storm approaching, and it felt like it was miles and miles wide. And I knew that there was no running from this, it was coming. And so I took my brother by the hand, and I wasn't full of fear and I wasn't in like a mad panic, but I was like, we need to get to shelter now. But the only time that I had was enough time to take myself and my brother to a place of safety. So next to this parking lot, there is a gravel road. And under the gravel road in my dream, there was a giant culvert, which is like a big metal pipe that goes under the road for water drainage and that sort of thing. So I took my brother to this culvert. I pushed him further in than I was. And I knew that the winds of the storm came up very quickly. And I thought to myself, I think I'm heavy enough that I'm not going to get sucked out. But even if I do, my brother is far enough in. I'm pretty sure that he's going to be okay. And I was at such peace just knowing that he would be safe. Now, after this storm passed, I crawled out of the culvert, and this is where the dream takes an even darker turn. I looked out over where the school bus was and like where all the kids had been, and I realized that most of these children who we'd been waiting with had been picked up and thrown by the winds of this storm. And as I looked over to my right, I saw in the field there was a bunch of these children's bodies in the field. And in the dream, this was really overwhelming to me because I it was almost like I was in a state of shock where I wanted to help, but the scene that was in front of me was so disturbing that I wanted to ignore it. I wanted to close my eyes. So I walked towards these children that were in the field, I would say quite apprehensively, because the scene was so disturbing. It was really painful to observe. And I noticed that this one boy, he wasn't dead, but I looked to check him over to see if anything had gone through him, any debris or anything. He seemed okay. So I sat him up. His eyes were open, but he seemed to be so traumatized by what he just experienced that he actually could not talk. And I didn't know if I would actually be able to pull his mind back into reality because he was in such a deep state of trauma. Then I looked over and there was another child laying next to him. And this child sat up on his own, but he was in the exact same state that he could not speak because he was so shocked by what had happened. And I didn't know if I would be able to get his mind to function well. So this is what I believe that the dream is saying. So there was this time of learning, a time of preparation. This is what the school was about that had been completed. And so my brother and I, we were on our way to this bus, which what we're just kind of waiting around for our time of departure. Now, the oil can that I saw in the sky, I really believe that this represents that extra oil that we read about the parable of the 10 virgins. Now, I want to point out something in that parable. So when that shout goes out to wake up all those virgins who are asleep, those virgins wake up. But there's actually a little bit of window of time between the shout, the awakening shout, and the actual time when the bridegroom comes. There's this little window of time, and that's at a very dark time because that shout goes out at a midnight hour. So there's this little bit of time and a very dark time when those 5 wise virgins are using their extra oil. And so this is the time period I believe that we are coming into, and we need to have it so that way we can make it and survive it through this very dark time that is quickly approaching. Now, in the dream, I had wished that I could have the time to be able to help everybody, but the only person I literally physically had the ability to be able to help was myself and my immediate brother. I believe that me coming out of the culvert after the storm had passed and looking at all these other children who had been caught up in this storm and greatly damaged by this storm, I believe that these are other children of God. These are God's children that did not have the time or the understanding that the storm was coming. And they didn't do what they needed to do in order to take shelter when they needed to. And they were caught up in this storm, and the disaster was very, very great. Upon waking from this dream, I asked the Lord very quickly, God, this dream is really heavy and it's really disturbing. I need to know that this is from you. Please provide a confirmation for me, because the last thing I want to do is mislead God's people. And I take it really seriously. Now, I'm not someone who always asks God for a confirmation for everything I think he shares with me. I see a lot of misuse of that, and people honestly can get really strange. Like, you know what I mean? Like, God gave me confirmation. Oh, the cloud looks like a duck, therefore, you know what I mean. I know you've all seen it, so that's not who I am. So I did very seriously ask God for a confirmation. I shared this dream later that morning with my husband, and my husband listened to it, and then he said to me, that's interesting because last night I had a dream as well of a coming storm. Now, my husband has had a couple of dreams from God, but they're on a completely different subject. They were really, really important, the dreams that he has received. But this is the first time he's had a dream of a coming storm or a coming calamity, something more prophetic in nature in that sense, or of a hard time coming. So I'm going to share his dream here as well. So he said that he and myself and our family and like his parents and sisters and stuff, we were all together outside, and he was a little bit more over into a field than we were. And so he had a better vantage point. He looked and he saw this approaching massive storm. He said This storm was absolutely frightening because it seemed to be miles wide and there was no way to escape this. And so he started hollering at us, guys, quick, get in the basement. And we were kind of like, la la la, kept talking to each other, not paying attention. And he's like, guys, get into the basement. This massive storm's coming. Go now. And we weren't paying him much attention. And so he said he was so frustrated in the dream because he was trying so hard and nobody was listening to him. And he said at the end, he ended up getting some of us at least into a basement when this storm hit, and then he woke up. I'm so thankful that God gave this dream to my husband, and so that him and I can be in prayer about this for our family and people that we know, how to share this with them and to warn of these things that are coming, because I absolutely believe that they are coming and they're coming soon. And so please be encouraged, though, that our God is a God who speaks, and He's a God who goes before us. He warns His children. He also goes behind us. He lights our path, and He Himself is faithful. So I want to encourage you today, even though this message is heavy, that our God is good and our God is faithful. So thank you so much for watching. God bless.